Hi there, I'm Anastasia, and today I'm going to be sharing my experience as a detransitioner with you all. I thought that I would play some World of Warcraft while I do so it's not just me talking, because I don't feel comfortable doing that as much, and I think that it would be more visually exciting to have me playing a game, so I'm just going to be leveling in alts. I don't even know if I'm going to use her or not, but like, I'll just have this in the background. I'm a huge WoW nerd, always have been. Here is part of my WoW sleeve, which is barely finished. Um, my dog is here. I don't know if you can see her or hear her, but she is joining us right now. Anyways, so let's talk about transitioning, detransitioning, everything. So I was born a girl, then I transitioned to being male, and then I am detransitioning back to being a woman. So my experience, I will say straight out, I am only speaking from my experience, from my thoughts, from my feelings. I am not talking for any other trans person or detrans person in this video. So please don't take what I say as the only truth, as the only thing that can be possible. This is purely just me and what I've been through and what I'm thinking. So that, and then also I have had a very traumatic, chaotic life. I've never had an easy life. It's just I've had a lot of bad things happen to me. So I can turn into a cat. I didn't realize that I got to the level. Yes. Okay. Sorry, I main a feral druid, so I actually have Caldor on my knuckles, and I have the symbol of a loon on my thumb. Anyways, getting back to it. Um, okay. So, yeah, I've had a lot of trauma throughout my life, even early life trauma. I was adopted from Russia and I was really sick when I was a baby and everything. Like, I have had trauma since I was an infant. And, um, people will tell you that, like, if you have infantile trauma, like, that stays with you forever. That changes you as a person. And I definitely think that that's the case for me. Um, and also being adopted, I was adopted from American parents, so I'm an international adoptee. That also has something to do with, like difficulty with finding connections or connecting to a community or even like, knowing your identity. So I've struggled with identity issues with trauma since I can remember, essentially. I've also been in therapy since I can remember. Anyways, let's get into the transition story. So I I'm gonna be a cat. Okay. Okay, so I didn't think about gender when I was little. Um, it wasn't something I cared about. I cared about stuffed animals and playing with toys and pretend. I've always been very artistic, so drawing has always been a thing for me. Making stories up. Like my imaginative world and love for animals and my family and friends were like the core of my mind. Like I didn't think about being a girl versus being a boy or anything like that. Like gender roles weren't like a thing. But I guess if you could think about like what I was like as a child, I was very feminine as a child. I loved playing dress up. I did ballet. I was always just a more feminine little girl, I guess. And I didn't really start to notice like gender and stuff until I was going through puberty, which I went through it early. I think I got my period at like 10. I developed before pretty much anybody else in my class. And that was also traumatic for me because people don't really know what to do when you're going through that. So I was like developing, I had acne, like I was super awkward, did not fit in, was very uncomfortable. And like, when I was in ballet, like I was the biggest of everybody and it was uncomfortable. Puberty's uncomfortable no matter what, but especially being like the main person that's going through puberty before other people, not a good time. And so that's kind of like when I started to like notice my gender and feel uncomfortable with my body. And I think that I've had body dysmorphia and maybe like facial dysmorphia like since then. And it was only when I was like around 13 when I found out about transgender people. I was starting to learn about my sexuality. I've been out as bisexual since I was like 13. And I joined this thing called Trevor Space, which it's a part of the Trevor Project. I don't know if it exists anymore, but it was back then. It was kind of like a social media for kids and teenagers to connect with one another based on being LGBT. Um, and honestly, it was like a dating website. Like everybody and myself, we all used it to basically date each other. Like, when you're finding out more about your sexuality and who you like, your crushes, you start to develop interests with other people that are similar to you. So a lot of us found also like friend groups and everything, but also like people to date online through Trevor Space. So that's kind of like when I started to learn about transgender people and I started to question my gender. When I was 13 and 14, I started to experiment with gender expression. I kind of looked like a little scene emo boy. I was already like scene and emo. I've always been alternative, although I look very not today. um, and so I started to go by masculine pronouns and a masculine name, and I started to like socially transition, I guess. And I was also in gender therapy at this time, gender and trauma therapy at this time, specifically. So that didn't go great. I got a lot of pushback from family, close family, and some friends, and my therapist even as well. And then when I got into high school, everything went to shit. Oh, I need to go to the other moon well. Okay. So everything went to shit when I went to high school because all of the teachers and the students both bullied me. I was mercilessly bullied. I was so uncomfortable. It was a really bad time. So I actually ended up going to the mental hospital getting outpatient treatment, but it was like daily outpatient treatment at the mental hospital. Um, why wasn't I as a cat? So when that happened, when I went to the mental hospital, I actually detransitioned. So I started going back by my old name and going by female pronouns again and just completely dropped the transgender thing because I was like, it's too hard, it's too scary, I cannot do this. But I always had it in my mind that like maybe I'll go back to that in the future, I don't know. And then when I was a teenager, I got into a serious long-term relationship with somebody who would not have been safe to come out as trans with. So I was like, put that in the back of my mind. And I still kind of like, try to discover my identity. Teenagers do that like through music, through interests, through religion, through spirituality, through different things. And I actually started to go by my birth name instead of my adoptive name. Um, and that was a thing. And then a little bit later in that relationship, which got worse and worse as things got on, it was a very abusive relationship. I experienced a lot of domestic violence situations with this person or by this person. And so I began to kind of escape through coming up with characters or role-playing or writing as characters that were either male or trans guys. Um, and it was like the masculine part of me was like my safe space. And I really connected with it. Especially when you're in a situation that's really unsafe where you are being put down because you're a woman and you are being sexualized and brutalized because you're a woman, like finding a male safe space is really healing and really liberating. And so like I was like, this feels great. And so almost immediately after getting out of that relationship, out of escaping it, like a few months after, I started to experiment with gender again, and I was like, I think that I am a trans man. And so I started to transition. I went back to gender therapy and I got on to testosterone in November of that year. All right,
What
let me
brings
catch
you
my
here?
thoughts while I turn in these quests.
May the stars guide you.
Okay. So before I started to go on testosterone, I also want to say that I was probably one of the most informed people about female to male transitioning, because I had done
Is
research on it since I was 12, since I was younger.
farewell.
Um, so, different risks that are attached to HRT. I'm not going to say that I knew all of them because I certainly didn't, but I knew a lot. I knew as much as you could at the time that I started transitioning, because if you aren't aware, like this is like kind of like newer experiences. Like, so science is always like is still like coming out with a lot of different things about like long-term cross-sex hormone usage. So I knew pretty much
Peace
everything that
be
you
with
could
you.
know about it
Farewell.
at that time that I started to transition. I probably knew more than some of the doctors that I've seen, definitely. And I knew a lot of things about like surgeries, procedures, presenting male, how to go about different like legal things. And the way that my transition looked is I changed my name, I went by male pronouns, and I went on testosterone. That's it. I never got any procedures done. I never got my name or my gender changed legally. Like, I was strictly just on HRT and going by a different name and pronouns. And I didn't I don't want to say that I felt pressured by anybody to further my transition even more, because I didn't really, like, people would question me about it sometimes, but at the same time I was like, I was just doing my own thing and people pretty much respected that. So I was like, you know what, like, I feel comfortable in this state of being. Like, I'm just gonna stay here. I'm not gonna like go into any surgeries or any procedures or anything. Like, I never felt like I had to do something to be trans, which I think helped me in the long run.
What brings you
And
here? Be careful. A
honestly,
shot doesn't
transitioning was a success for me.
Good luck,
I'm
friend.
gonna run around Darnassus. This is the city of Darnassus, if you didn't know. The Night Elf city. I'm a big Night Elf fan. Um, I have Kaldori, which means Night Elf, tattooed on my knuckles. I have the sign of a loon on my thumb. I have my other World of Warcraft tattoos. I'm just building a sleeve right now, so very much in love with this game. And I've been playing it since Cataclysm, so... Anyways, if I start talking about World of Warcraft, then I'm never going to shut up. Where was I? Okay, yeah, transitioning. Transitioning was a success for me. And what I mean by that is that I was able to live my life and achieve things and accomplish things and move forward in ways that I'm not sure if I could have done, that I could have done that had I not transitioned. Because I went through so many different traumatic things, embracing this masculine safe space, this masculine person that I became, was so helpful for me to get out of my head and get out of my body, because testosterone, it changes how you think, and it also changes how you experience touch and sensations physically. And so having that big shift in my life physically and mentally was exactly what I needed to save me from myself and from, you know, just kind of spiraling out of control. So it did something very important for me. Like, I got through undergrad. I went back to school after getting out of that abusive relationship. I got back into undergrad and finished that up. I got multiple jobs and was very good at those. I got different awards and achievements, and I'm a professional artist and writer, and I got like my first work in an exhibition, and I got stuff published in literary magazines. So I achieved pretty much everything that I really wanted to do. I also got into grad school. And I'm not even gonna comment on the fact whether like it was because I was trans or not that I got into any of these things, because I never took it as such, because I was so put down in my previous relationship, and like my ex didn't believe in me. He thought I was dumb. He thought that I couldn't achieve anything. Like I had this fire under my ass from myself being like, you have to work your butt off to learn different social cues, to get back in the world, to achieve what you want. So like everything that I did was purely because of hard work. That's a fucking fact. I got through so much stuff, and I went through some hard times during undergrad. I had like 7 people die on me in the course of a few months. It was awful. Like I worked so hard on everything. So I don't take it as like a freebie or anything like that. Um, but you know, like embodying this other side of myself, I would rather say, than this other person, because it's all me. But this other side of myself, it allowed me to live life again. It allowed me to love myself, to find myself, and to get out of such a painful place. So in that regard, transitioning was a success. But at the same time, things didn't feel permanent. Like, I didn't want to advance my transition further. That was not something that I wanted to do, and I always had it in my mind that it's a possibility that I will detransition. Just like during the period of my detransition in the middle, where I considered transitioning again, detransition was always a possibility for me when I was transitioning. So I always kept that open, and I didn't want to rush into anything. So I didn't. And yes, testosterone does give you permanent changes, but because I transitioned at 21 medically with HRT, didn't go through anything else, I haven't had as many effects as somebody else might have. Whether if they transitioned earlier on hormones or had blockers or something like that, or went through different procedures, they are people that will have to deal with more, a lot a more difficult detransition process than I will have. I pretty much got off testosterone. I'm just dealing with those hormonal shifts, and I'm going to have to do laser hair removal. That's frankly it. Like, yes, my voice has changed. Yes, my anatomy is a little bit different. Um, but honestly, it is not a big deal for me. I don't know if I'm fertile or not. I do hope that I am. But at the same time, if I'm not, it's not the end of the world. My adoptive mom couldn't have kids and she got me, and I don't even know if I want kids or not. Like, so I'm not like devastated that I transitioned. Yes, it's going to be a pain in the ass to get laser hair removal. Yes, some things are kind of awkward right now. I have to shave my face every day, and dating is just going to be weird trying to like explain all this to people, but like I've had such a rough life before that it's like I've already had to deal with awkward conversations. I had to deal with awkward conversations in undergrad where I was like, oh yeah, I was married. I was basically a trad wife before. Like, that was awkward too. So it's kind of just like the opposite of that. So transitioning was something that I feel like helped me in the moment, but it's not serving me any more purpose. And detransitioning is a gift. I feel like detransitioning for me is a gift. And I wrote this in a blog post that I made where I was basically like, I became the man that could give me everything in the world. And now, like, the ultimate thing that I gave myself was the gift of womanhood back. And that is entirely how I feel. I feel so thankful and privileged and grateful to be at this point in my life where I'm like, I got to experience life as a more masculine person. I got to go through these different experiences. I got to see through this perspective. I'm so thankful for that because it gave me a bigger worldview of not only the way that men's lives works, but also how like women's lives works and like how people interact with each other socially, and like it really opened my eyes to the world in a way that I don't think that I would have gotten if I didn't transition or detransition. Oh, I have to go back. I have to go back. Let's run back. I have to give her the note in Darnassus. Oops. So, detransitioning is really a tough thing to talk about for multiple reasons because, on one hand, the people that are transgender, when they hear that people are detransitioning or see detransitioners talk about their experiences, they might feel very threatened by it, or feel like, you know, other people will take what we say and use it against them. That is why I do not want people to use my story against other people, because I've had a very unique experience, not only in life, but also in my transition. I also understand that a lot of detransitioners have a lot of trauma from transitioning because I've gone through a more serious process than I have. And I can't imagine honestly having to go through the amount of dysphoria in detransition, especially if you've done a more serious process of it. Like, I feel really uncomfortable in myself at night, when, like, you know, my stubble showing more and it's just more real. Like, my body's very feminine still. My face is pretty good. My voice is sometimes good, sometimes bad. I don't know. My hair is long. I'm actually wearing extensions right now, but my hair is like down to here by now. So I feel pretty good in myself. So I can't imagine what it's like to have more dysphoria than I do right now. It just be really horrible. Especially if you're feeling regret and stuff. Like, I don't feel regret. I just feel like, wow, that was the time of my life that I don't want to continue, but I'm glad for the gifts that it gave me. Um, so it's a really nuanced, difficult conversation to have, and I'd love to have more conversations with people about this. Um, and a few more things that I do want to say is, firstly, the political climate of transitioning and being transgender and detransitioning and all that has drastically changed since I was 12 and since I began transitioning the second time. Um, there was a major shift in things, and it's rough out there for everybody at the moment. Even for, you know, people that were born in the bodies that they stayed in. Like, everybody's accusing different people of being trans or transphobic, and it's not a great environment to be in at the moment. At least on the internet. In real life, I think it's really different, at least in a lot of places. But online, it's a really polarized world. Another thing is that, like, I find it so silly to gender like activities for the most part. Like, something that I've been thinking a lot about throughout my transition and detransition is like, what am I doing that's feminine? What am I doing that's masculine? And it's like, it's such a mind fuck because I have interests and traits that I guess could be considered either. Like, I love makeup, I love hair, I love fashion. I'm a very nurturing, soft person, so those could all be considered feminine. But then I'm also like, I love World of Warcraft. I love historical European martial arts like sword fighting. Like, like I like things on both sides, and so it's kind of odd for me to think of like activities or certain things as like gendered. And so I'm trying not to like do that because otherwise it makes me like think too much. Like, if I do a masculine activity, does that make me masculine? If I do a feminine activity, does that make me feminine? And it's just like it it almost like labels you as the activity. It's it's odd. Like, I'm playing World of Warcraft, but I'm like, I'm all dolled up. Like, I feel girly pop. Um, this is just me, just being me. Like, and I was talking to my therapist actually today, and I was like, you know, detransitioning, I got really nervous because I don't want to go back to the person that I was before. Um, because I was in a very miserable place right before my transition, as I said. Like, transitioning saved me from a lot. Like, I was not in a good state of being. So, like, the idea of detransitioning and like going back to the person that I was right before detransitioning, that scares the shit out of me. I don't want to be that person. I want to be me, but like me as a woman. Me back as a woman. Because I never got to experience womanhood by myself. I was in that serious, messed up relationship from 15 to 20. And then I was out as a man from 21 to 26. So I'm experiencing womanhood for the first time, and I just want that to be as me. I don't want to have to embody this like caricature of a woman or anything. Like, I just literally want to be the same person that I was when I was a trans man, but as me. I don't know. Like, and honestly, I don't really have to change the way I was. Like, I was feminine, flamboyant before. I was loving World of Warcraft since Cataclysm. Like, I'm just me
May the
as a woman
stars
now.
guide you.
And
Good
it's such an
night.
interesting thing. And I know that, like, my feelings might change and different things might happen as I get further in my detransitioning process. This is just where I am at this current moment. And that's about it for now. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm also on TikTok if you want to follow. I post more like little updates on there and like things. Transitioning and detransitioning and gender are not like the cornerstones of my personality at all. But I just think that it's helpful to share my story because I have a unique experience of that. So I want to make sure that I can try to help people, try to find out who they are as people so they don't
I missed you.
make decisions that would be harmful for them. So they get like more of a wider picture. That is like the whole point of speaking out about detransitioning, is so that people are informed about what could happen. Like, so I hope that this is helpful in certain ways. Yes, certain things are difficult. Certain things are great. So thank you for watching. I hope I didn't ramble too much, but who knows?